Welcome to another episode of the Straight Up Chicago Investor Podcast. I'm 𝗤𝘃𝗀𝗏. With me, as always, is Mark Ainley. Mark, what's going on today?
Hey, we're recording this on a Friday, and I think you're going to the Cubs game today. So everything's feeling good today. So we'll have a good episode here because we're upbeat and less stressed, right?
Yeah, something like that until my phone rings 4 times during the call or something.
So we were talking about before the show, all the information that's available to buyers online to be able to get more due diligence and use that for negotiating in advance of coming to a final price. Kind of talk a little bit more about what you've been dealing with on that.
Yeah, so this has happened twice now in the last, call it 2 to 3 weeks. So we don't talk about it a lot, but I am a realtor. I do have clients that we're showing to.
There's your disclosure.
And, yeah, full disclosure. So, let's turn this into a commercial. But you can look up the building permits. You can look up the permits that have been pulled, what's been passed, what's been failed. You can look up violations. So if you're going to do a distressed property, you can look up violations because you might have a budget of $100K, $200K, whatever it is. But there might be things you didn't think about, like, oh, crap, we got to tear down the garage because we have a violation on it, right? So you can hone in on your number on the distress side. And then if you're looking to buy something more turnkey or more where work has been done already, you can see if the permits have been pulled. We had a situation where they're like, yep, it's all new plumbing, all new electric, all new whatever. And I go to the site and nothing's pulled, right? So, and maybe they did everything to code, maybe not, but you have to tell the buyer that, right? Like you have to say like, hey, they didn't pull anything here. So like offer accordingly or walk away or use it as leverage if you want.
So we've watched a lot of turnkey buyers, or we've taken over management for a lot of owners that have invested. They buy this turnkey product or call it rehab product, and they think they're clear sailing. And then all of a sudden, for whatever reason, the city comes in a couple months later, even a couple of years later, and they tag them and say, "Hey, you did all this work. You need full plans and permits for it." So now they have to go.
Whether you did the work or not, it will fall on your shoulders.
This is your problem now. And now you have to get an architect. You have to go through the process. And maybe you don't have to do much work and they call it an as is permit. But you're still going to pay $5 to $10 grand just trying to figure out the as is solution and you got to pay for an attorney. It's just a lot of headaches. You got to go to court. So all that, you got a lot of information out there. And we'll link to the site in the show notes. But if you just Google up City of Chicago building violations, it'll take you to where you can enter the address. That's one of the easier ways. That's how I always do it. Yeah,
no, absolutely. So it'll show you violations, permits pulled, all that fun stuff. And if you have questions on it, reach out to someone who's more experienced, but know what you're walking into. So
cool.
All right. Housing provider tip of the week.
That kind of sounded like a tip of the week. So we would kind of get double.
You want to roll in?
Yeah, no. But so my housing provider tip of the week is just be conscious of the tenants you have. Keep good tenants. A lot of times we bend over backwards for bad tenants, and the good tenants that aren't asking much of us, we just kind of put on cruise control and don't really pay attention to. So I'll keep it short and sweet here, but keep good tenants. If you have good tenants, maybe do something more for them, or make sure you're reviewing their place on an annual basis, see if there's anything you do, or see if there's anything you get them to renew. Because those are the people, profit in this business, success in this business equals less turnover for you buy and holders. So keeping those good tenants in place, if you can keep them in 5, 10, 12 years, like that's huge difference in the money you're going to make on that particular property. So
absolutely. Peace of mind as well.
Yep.
Let's roll in.
All right. Today's guest, we're going to kind of break down a few different things here today, but today's guest, he started off as a trader. He moved into commercial banking. I believe he was working for one of the banks. And then he is now principal for the last 13 years of Continuing Capital, which is a lender that we'll just say does non-traditional lending based on banking standards. So we're talking about some true relationships today. He is a graduate of Ohio State and then also master's at DePaul. So we got some big hitting universities there. We're excited today to have Brian Lignelli on the show. So Brian, welcome aboard here. Did I sell you short in the intro? Is there anything more you want to add to that?
No, all great. Thank you, Mark, Tom. It's a privilege to be on here. And I just want to commend you, gentlemen, for the establishment of your podcast, Straight Up Chicago Investor. It is proven just to be an amazing resource for our community. And you do a great job. Thank you.
Well,
so you like this guy already?
Yeah. It's a requirement. We make people say that to come on the show. So, you have to say at least 2 nice things about the show.
No, it's true.
So before we dive into background and the topics here today, I want to bring up to everyone listening and revisit here for us 3, just how we ended up on this call. I think this is such a cool scenario that started, I think about 10, 11 years ago now. So some of you guys know 𝗬𝘃𝗲𝗀𝗃𝗀𝗀𝗀, who's I think episode 11, but he 11 years ago as an investor was standing in the Home Depot down on 87th Street. And he was at the contractor. He's actually, I remember Jared could tell the story a lot better, but Jared was pissed off at they didn't have something in or they weren't giving the discounts he wanted. And about 5 feet away was a contractor, big guy. You could tell he's a contractor, big burly guy. And he is leaning against him. He goes to Jared. He says something along the lines of, "Hey, you need someone to lend you money?" And right away, Jared, again, he tells the story great. He gets like this creep factor, like, "Oh my gosh, what's this guy doing?" Like, it was just a weird question at a random time in a weird place. And Jared being who he is, he starts talking a little more and ultimately, he's not even sure that this guy's legit. He gives him his email and he says, "If you send me the information," and the information that the contractor there today, Benny, and Benny's done a job for you, Tom, and he's done many jobs for us. I refer him out.
Side note, his email is like 𝗬𝘃𝗲𝗀𝗶𝗵𝗵.
𝗬𝘃𝗃𝗲𝗀𝗃𝗃. Yep.
Which is hilarious.
So Benny sends Brian's information over to Jared. And Jared goes on and does millions of dollars of lending with Brian here. And ultimately, you guys formed a relationship. You're a huge part of his success. And then one day I came along and I said, "Hey, Jared, I know you got your guy that you're working with." And I had whatever scenario it was, and I need to refer you. And that's how you and me connected. And then we connected a few years later again. And here we are on the show. So all because of a visit to Home Depot of a contractor who basically was networking himself. It's just the power of networking relationships and where things go. And my wife always gives me a hard time about talking to random strangers, but I think that is some of the most powerful moments you have of talking to random strangers of growing your network.
Absolutely. And that's a beautiful thing about our marketplace as well. I think that's real estate in particular. I know we talk about how relationships matter, but for me personally, it's one of the things that I really love about our industry is that you can have meaningful relationships. And it's so important for us to enjoy what we do every day and wake up. So it's great. That was a wonderful, thank you for sharing that story. And yes, we've had the privilege of working with both Mr. Kott and Mr. Reyes over the course of the years, both from investing as a lender in their projects, but also working with them via their other elements of the business, whether it be Jared through his property management company or Benny through some of his contracting elements as well.
Yeah. And besides the golden rule of like, you just should be nice to other people as a decent human being, like it goes to show like you treat a contractor well, and it led to him going out of his way to get this client that leads to $1 million of business, right? Like you treat everyone well, the stuff does come back to you. You shouldn't be expecting that return, but it does come back to you.
But now that you've said this, Tom and Mark, Benny's probably going to be coming for me for some type of fee for the referral.
So, he'll say it. Yep, he will say it. Yep. I love Benny.
Yes. So, but yes, the power of and that right there is a great case in point of how our business, if we dovetail into that, and that's really how we have grown our business over the course of years, is pure relationships, what I call the guerrilla marketing, or not I call, but that's the nomenclature of just boots on the ground, pressing the flesh, doing right to people, and trying to benefit and help them in other aspects of their business and their life that may not be directly related to that underlying a transaction that you first connected with them with.
Well, let's kind of dive deeper into kind of your part of the industry and how you got into this. But you start off as a trader, which is pretty crazy, chaotic position, and you went into you got more into a call it a commercial banking type position that would be a little more level-headed than running around the market. And you you left there and you got into to Continuum Capital today. What I want, the question I guess I have here is, what need did the market have that motivated you to jump into Continuum from a pretty steady type position in a really steady industry? Like, what's the need out there that you started for, and that you probably still serve that same need today?
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you. I'm going to back it up just a moment. Actually, I began my professional career, or prior to getting into trading, I was actually working for a big corporation. I was with Pfizer doing pharmaceutical sales, and I learned a lot about that organization in terms of its structure, hierarchy. And although I had a great respect for that, I, much like all of us in our industry here now, I wanted more freedom and had an entrepreneurial spirit. So actually, my brother was a floor trader here at the options exchange, and he was able to, through his relationships, get me on the floor. And quite frankly, I couldn't have timed that any worse. I got in, and by the time I got my quote unquote badge, it was right when the industry started to drastically change. We went into the tech bust. And as we know, floor traders were going extinct, and now they are extinct and they are no longer with us. So I knew that I had to yet reinvent myself again in a very short period of time. So I underwent at least 50 plus informational interviews. I had an affinity and interest towards real estate. I didn't know much about it. I knew that there were opportunities to accumulate great wealth and to have an independence, create a lifestyle which was more in your own terms. So I set off and just started meeting people of all assets of the business, whether they were an architect, a CPA, an appraiser, broker, across all the property types, residential, industrial, retail, office. And I did that for a good couple of years while I was still trading, but knowing that, the shop needed to be closed in the near future. All the while, I knew I needed to invest in myself. So I pursued an MBA at DePaul part-time. So during my days, I would trade early morning. I would go to school at night. And in between there, I would do these informational interviews. And that is something, particularly those that are starting off in the industry. People just naturally like to talk about themselves, I dare say, and their successes. And if you come to them and asking for their help, their insight, they're going to be so willing to, respectfully of their time, to make another connection for you that may benefit you. And so I tangentially went on this path. And what ultimately that led me to was an opportunity at a commercial bank, which is no longer with us. It's part of Wintrust. It was a single bank. And knowing the leadership and the management there, 𝗬𝗏𝗏𝗏 and others, they enabled me to have an unconventional role where I was more in the business development side, much like on the residential side of compensation, where I was compensated on the eat what you kill. So in doing that, that enabled me to do things outside of what a normal conventional banker would do, that is on salary and has different responsibilities. So I saw the banking structure of how a conventional bank underwrites, their processes, their systems, understanding regulation. And I was also able to go use my network and to do some private type of deals. And I'll give you just a quick example of, and this will dovetail to answer your question, Mark. While I was working at the bank, one of the investors of the bank had a nephew that Indiana University that needed an intern for summer. And I said, great, I'd be happy to work with them, bring them out in the streets and, boots on the ground, and as well as show them our operations here in the lending side. And through my relationship with this intern, his uncle, who was one of the investors in the banking institution, became my first investor partner. And he is now my partner in Continuum, 𝗦𝘃𝗲𝗏𝗵𝘁. And not only did that dovetail just doing right to his nephew, give me access to his uncle, just being good, then now it has morphed and evolved into he's a mentor, a confidant, a great friend, my business partner. We do a multitude of businesses with him together. So while I was in the banking industry, and this was really through 2000 through 2006, 2007, I was able to really understand the challenges and the processes of conventional banking. And while I was in graduate school, that was not that this is all that unique. There's a lot of people that are out there in the private lending world, but that's where I was able to identify and participate in the niche of more the creative custom financing that is really the anti-bank, the anti-institutional lending. So I took some of those institutional methods and processes and tried to eliminate all of the hurdles or difficult elements of it that really made the experience dreadful for lending customers, and then to make it more of a customized, custom suit, more of a bespoke boutique experience for our partners, which are our borrowing customers. So that was a lot.
Yeah.
There are a lot of different tangents on that.
Ultimately, though, what kind of client, or maybe you give some examples? What are the people that the conventional banks are not able to service that Continuum or companies like Continuum are really capitalizing on? Helping be successful.
Sure. We like to, our ideal customer are ones that are experienced, that have exhausted friends and family, investor capital, that are not as evolved, if you will, where they're doing PPM issuances or debts or funds, but they have a great network. They have a great team around them, whether they be agents, a property management, contracting team, attorneys, insurance brokers, but they just have limitations in getting to that next level. So we like to partner with them. We don't want to be an anchor to them, and we work with them. Our customers typically have two components of their business. One is most of them are trying to build a portfolio to build their net worth of rental property. And in conjunction with them, most of the time they are also flipping assets to have a monetary event. So we work with them creatively, where we're effectively providing them working capital lines of credit to buy both rental properties as well as to invest in the acquisition and renovation of properties which they look to flip, whether that's a single family home, an apartment building, or a mixed use asset.
Got it. And Brian, is this like a Chicago thing? Like, are you guys completely local here?
It's a great question. Yes. So our capital is backed from high net worth individuals, family office, that we are focusing on our local expertise. So we all know we can, as you have spoken with, there's so many nuances. It's the good and the bad of our marketplace, right? And albeit we are focused here in Chicago, and I think we all know that we have great headwinds before us. We're exploring looking into a few other markets, and we actually just did a couple deals within the past month in Denver. But the only way that will do deals outside of our market is if we have real boots on the ground, because we're a relationship again. So we need to go out there, kick the bricks, talk to our customer, understand what their vision is, how they're going to execute their strategy. And that is really, that qualitative assessment and process is what we believe has found our success, as well as our customers' success to work with them. But at the moment, we are primarily Chicago driven, but we are exploring other markets. And I will tell you, it is amazing as I do more research and dig in how other markets really differ from Chicago on a multitude of reasons, but we don't need to go down that tangent.
So so you mentioned before we got on the show, how when you continue to start it 13, 14 years ago, it was really you had limited competition. What's changed about your industry? And I guess I have one more question because I want to clarify it for myself and other people. You have traditional banking, and then you hear these words, hard money. You hear, what do you guys consider it, or what are the different classes of? Is there something between traditional banking and hard money? I guess I call it middle tier money, but that's just something I made up.
Yes, I have long. I've never warmed up to the expression hard money for a multitude of reasons.
You think of Italians beating you up because you didn't pay the dues.
Exactly. Particularly me, I'm of Italian ancestry, so I get that association very quickly. So I always like to use the term private lender. However, to answer your question, Mark, I truly believe that there are a few different buckets of lending. So we certainly have our conventional regulated banking institutions. And over the course of the past 10 years, the private lending space has really evolved. And when we first started, there was one big player here in Chicagoland. That was 𝗦𝘃𝗲𝗃𝗵𝗁. And the only other players were wealthy individuals who were doing one-off deals. And of that segment, it was primarily real estate attorneys. They were wealthy. They were doing a lot of direct lending. So we came in and we tried to create a more structured business where we're actually structured as a fund, but bringing some type of bank-like processes, standards, but very anti-bank. And now that it has evolved where we're in a space, but there's yet another space. I believe that there's three different buckets. You have the conventional, then you have the private lenders that are now very institutional backed. And those are more tied to Wall Street, and their boxes may be a little bit more, or they are much more defined. So I believe, are in the middle of that, where our box can constantly be morphed and does evolve. And I can tell you, when we first started doing deals in 2004, even the different property types, what was available, what we were doing in the more distressed state in 2008 to 2010, more multifamily mixed use assets. And now we are doing a lot more of flipping, for example, which is hot. So we need to adapt and to evolve. But I believe, again, that there are just these three buckets. You have the more institutionally Wall Street backed private lenders, conventional banks, and then you have some players like ourselves, which are more customized in the middle.
Yep. So Brian, a lot of our listeners are, they might have bought a property, a couple properties. They probably haven't taken on an extensive rehab. And I think a lot of it is there's fear, getting the right contractor, getting the lending lined up. If they go with someone in this space, in the private lending space, what safeguards are there for them? Because they hear the term hard money, they see the rate and they're like, oh man, this could get real bad, which is the right way to think. But like, what are some of those safeguards of, well, actually, here's the way you are protected? Absolutely.
Great question. And yes, the best, when people look at our cost of capital, and I'm going to put both in our space as well as more the institutional back, it's certainly at a premium to a conventional lender, right? So the customers that we partner with and that we work well with are truly those that are looking us as another commodity, right? We're just a cost similar, despite the fact we add that relationship to it, but you got to factor in our pricing, just like as drywall, nails, your plumbing. Yes, it may be on paper a higher rate, but really what we look for and that we try to aid our customers is really creating the synergies of a proper team, particularly those that may be newer to the industry. And that is really I'll tell you, when we go out and we're meeting with customers, that's really where our underwrite is. It's less about what the equity is, what the ARV is going to be, what the cost. We want to go and talk to them and to understand who is their team. How do they find that property if it's a flip? Who are they going to use to sell the property? Who's going to be their general contractor? If it's a rental, who's going to be the management company that they are using? And we want to know what what they estimate in terms of pricing, not only with labor, materials, rental rate, ARV. And if that person hasn't done their research and doesn't know the market, then that's someone that we're not going to feel comfortable partnering with, because we use the expression, we don't want to be an anchor to someone. We only want to set someone up for success. We want to be a springboard for more. We don't want to bring them down, because if someone cannot service our debt, or if someone cannot execute on their strategy. So, Tom, to really answer your question, we really recommend, and we want to see that they have a real team, a support mechanism around them to help them succeed. And it's just not them, particularly if they're a little bit more green.
Yeah. I mean, we've heard this like multiple times on the show now, like team, right? Like, get out of the rut of just thinking, but what can I do? Like the Mark, your big who, not how thing. Find a team. Everything gets so much easier. But our business, my personal business, has gone up tremendously because I've met a ton of different people over the last year.
And
I'm the same person. I know other people. Yeah. That's all that's changed.
And as a capital partner, I look at that as a strength. Someone who has a deeper network, that is that qualitative component where I'm giving that person more thumbs up. That person is more attractive to me to do business with, because I know that when bad things happen, they're going to be able to better work out of those situations and leaning in on their professional network. And someone who touts themselves as they can do all these different things, I'm less inclined to. They very well may be adept and have the skill set to do those things, but there's only a certain amount of time in the day and of what one can do. So yes, I think someone being more humble and saying that no, I can't do it, but I've got Mark Ainley and GC, these guys are great. That gives me comfort. I think that's great to have those specialized, the who, not how. I'm actually reading that book right now as well. Mark, you all's recommendation. Just into it. Yes.
Nice. Well, to kind of keep going down the networking, we'll kind of move over to some of your experience in Lincoln Park Builders Association. You were past chair, past president, and Tom and I get a true advantage. We get to invite whoever we want on here and talk to them, and then we gain their network every time. So that's something I think we've grown to be lucky. That's one of the awesome byproducts of doing the show. But other people that do not run podcasts, they have to get out their network and find events or solicit online. You did a lot with Lincoln Park. You did a lot with, I think you were chair of REIA, REIA as well too. Kind of tell us a little bit about that and how just any of our listeners can really just jump in and get involved in organizations like this.
Absolutely. Yes. To your words, jumping in is really the most critical thing. And unfortunately, it takes time. It's a lot of reps. Where you need to showing up is a big part of it. And developing the relationships is certainly, doesn't happen overnight. So attending these events, finding ways that you can add value for other people and communicating with them, whether that is, and expressing ways that that you were thinking of that person, and doing that on the one-on-one level is really what I have found to enable me, fortunately, to be the beneficiary of these organizations, and then to be able to evolve in some leadership roles is just, heavily participating, creating strong network, and, obviously putting in the time and effort and working. But yes, the Builders Club and 𝗬𝗏 are vast networks. And I've had the benefit of, piggybacking off of great relationships that I've made there off of their networks. So I highly, highly recommend people to get involved. And that's one thing that I'm really excited as we're hopefully turning out of this COVID market or error a bit. But that's been a real drag on all of us here this past couple of years where we've not been able to do as much in person, which I think press in the flesh is much more valuable than, the Zoom, the phones, et cetera.
I think one of the biggest things talking about Lincoln Park Builder Association that wasn't around probably 5-10 years ago is how everything has became affiliated with all the different neighborhood groups, and it's all rolling up to MBOA, which has been a huge asset to this community just in the last couple of years. Everything is pushing out. So the way that I imagine you could test this, how it's structured right now is just a huge benefit to versus what it was a few years ago, and how it's evolved. It's been awesome.
Absolutely. To your point, Mark, where during COVID, where we have not been able to meet in person, I really commend and 𝗦𝘃𝗲𝗀𝗀𝘀𝗁 and the whole executive board of the MBOA. It's amazing, quite frankly, what as an amazing, tremendous resource in addition to yourselves and of your podcast here. I think that MBOA has just done a remarkable job in this tenuous past few years. And yes, that has solidified that structure where we have all these neighborhood associations now that are feeding up to the MBOA, which has just been great.
I think we've said Mike Lasser's name 3 episodes in a row. So we got to make sure he knows that.
Every time I see him, I thank him for everything that he's done, is keeping us all with all of our moratoriums and everything going on, the RLTO and Chicago and Cook County. It's a lot. So I really rely on them, and I'm grateful for the resource that they've become in sharing information.
Yeah, it gives the small landlords and developers the ability to have a seat at the table. That's really what he's been able to open up and create in the last couple of years.
Absolutely.
Yep. So Brian, these networking events, let's say I'm newer to the game. I'm going to put myself out there. I'm going to go to these. What advice would you give that person? I don't know anything yet, or I own something small. I want to go. I want to build my team. Fine. I'm going to go to a meetup. Like, give them some ammunition here, some thoughts on what you do. Mark, you got a comment.
Before you answer that, everyone is not like you. You will walk in a room and charm people and talk to every single person, and you'll know how many kids they have before you leave the room. Answer this from a shy person's perspective.
I'm an introvert, but I want to be successful.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah,
damn.
Great. I think it's important to even just focus on, if you can walk away from a networking event, and if you've just made one sound relationship and one sound contact, I think that's a big win. If that is someone, and perhaps you want to identify someone, quite frankly, that may at least appear to be well networked and that knows a lot of other people in the room. So if you have the ability to make a strong connection with that person, and then try to, in a non-aggressive, respectful way, try to make a contact with that person, follow up with that person. I'm a big believer of even the written note, the old fashioned. I still have personal stationery. I still write thank yous with my business card. I think and it doesn't need to be some dissertation. I believe that additional personal touch and follow up is extraordinarily meaningful and really can help differentiate you in a crowded field. So it's a process, it's a step. And if you can just make one, and again, you need to think about is what can you bring to that person? And also it's okay to ask that person for help. I think it's very reasonable, but it needs to be a respectful, reasonable question or of what that help may be. It can't involve a tremendous amount of time from that person for which you're asking help. But Tom, to your point, if you could focus on trying to make a sound connection with one of the thought leaders, make sure you follow up with that person. Maybe you have an ask of them, a small ask. And if there's one thing that you can do to try to help them or offer to help them, I think is a great start. And if you just keep doing that, that will grow over time and your sphere will evolve, but it takes time.
Believe it or not, I'm pretty shy. I don't know if introvert all the way, but I'm pretty shy in those situations in general. But the one thing, and over the years, obviously I've been able to evolve, but one of the things that was always helpful for me as a younger professional was, you mentioned it before, asking questions. A lot of people like to talk about themselves, you feed the ego. That sounds negative, but when you ask people like how they did, and you don't have to, maybe it annoys them if you ask them the entire story, but like, hey man, what were your struggles on that particular building? Or I heard you did this project and that was an amazing project. I would love to do something. And just going at a conversation in that aspect and kind of, I'd say it again, feeding the ego. I think that's a
totally agree. Yes. And a great way is look to try to create that personal element of them as a human being in a particular transaction, and giving attention to that personal element. Again, trying to differentiate yourself so that you can make a real connection.
Yeah. We had a guest on a couple of weeks ago, and he's a property manager, and I reached out to him after the show and I said, hey, listen, this is what I'm doing with it was something totally off the topic of what we talked about in the show, but it was something that could ultimately make him another 30 or 40,000 a year, just on how he holds his money, that whether he does it or not, he'll at least remember the fact that I tried to reach out. And I am doing those things on purpose. That's something that's just kind of grown over the years of naturally wanting to help people and add value.
Pay it forward, my brother. Absolutely. It's a big deal. It'll come back to you and as well.
One more thing on questions, like if I know, like in the sales process, when someone asks the right question, it shows like, oh, he or she knows what they're talking about. Like you might have never done a deal, but you can almost have the preface of, I know what I'm doing because these are the right questions you should be asking. Right? Like this.
Absolutely, Tom. Yes. And that's about doing your research and working. So yes, to your point. And that shows a lot about a person, right? When you're trying to make establish a relationship, it's okay if you don't know all the answers, but what is not okay, you need to know what to look for as best you can. Right. Or at least to start taking you down certain paths, which will open up more cans of worms, but still.
The one thing that I'll just one last thing before we wrap here is kind of a don't do. Sometimes people reach out to network and I'll think, the 15-20 minute call is we'll see what happens. You never know. Right. And I get the phone and their first question is, so what do you do? It's like,
yeah, come on, man.
Those are like, or how long you been in business for? Like, listen, man, I'm on the first 5 pages of Google. If you Google my name, like we could probably skip far forward to however I can help you on this call. So be prepared when you're going to network with people. Now you're in a networking group, or a function, you're not going to always know that person at a time, but if you're going to follow up with them after that group meeting, then, take the 5 minutes of Google. I think that's a huge way of kind of know what you're talking about, to the point you guys just made.
Absolutely.
Nice.
So, all right, cool. We're going to wrap now. You ready, Brian? Hit the questions. All right. So what has Continuum's competitive advantage been? You guys started off as one of the few, and now you're up against many, and you're going to make it for the long run. What's you guys been your competitive advantage?
Our competitive advantage is to have competitive pricing, strong relationships, and being a springboard for our customers' success and acting quickly and understanding that we want to be a pure asset and a pure partner in their success.
I'm going to add one more thing because that sounded more rehearsed. The relationship piece for your business, and I know this because I know people that have done business with you. When stuff has gone wrong, you guys have backed them one way or another to help them get through it. That's the relationship piece. Anyone can have a relationship with somebody, but when the crap hits the fan, you guys have been able to help them through some pain points, and that's I think the difference in that relationship.
That's that just to start on that to follow up on that. In terms of the relationship, we just ask for honesty. We know that to your point that crap happens, the partnerships fade, the market moves against us, prices of materials increase, you lose, your labor, all those things happen. And we just want to know about it. We want to help you. And that's really our mantra. Yes.
Brian, what is one piece of advice you would tell someone that is yet to buy their first property here in Chicagoland?
Do your research and create a good team of professionals through the whole process, buying, through renovation, through management and disposition, accounting, legal. Build yourself a strong network.
What do you do for fun?
Well, I've got an amazing family. I say for fun, I like to spend time with my daughters, my wife. And I'll tell you, one of my more favorite things is getting together with my real estate friends, talking shop, talking what's going on in the world, and trying to solve the problems of the world, which there are many. So there are much to talk about. But I love trying to exercise, and I enjoy reading when I'm able to find the time as well.
You said trying to exercise. That's funny. That's such a problem.
Yes. Goals. We got to have goals.
So, Brian, you mentioned 𝗏𝘃𝗏𝗏 already, but could you give us another good book, podcast, or self-development activity that you would recommend to our listeners?
Yeah, I always, as I mentioned, I love to read, and I break it down. I always am trying to read I'll say self-help, business-related book. 𝗏𝘃𝗏𝗏 is what I'm in now. But I also try to read a nonfiction. I just finished a great book on Winston Churchill. I'm reading this book called 𝗤𝘗's Truths, which is quite interesting, that identifies us by a former New Yorker writer, that is what makes America. It's the history of America and what makes America who we are. New York Times bestseller, 𝗤𝘗's Truths. Highly recommend it. You'll learn a lot of history, and you'll learn how we are as America relative to other major cultures. That goes into the thinking and processes and some of the nuances, which I'm loving.
Nice. Besides yourself, name one person in your local network you'd highly recommend to other investors.
I'd say Ryan Smith is a tremendous resource that I work with. Mark 𝗏𝘃𝗏𝗏𝗏. I'd say 𝗫𝗏𝘃𝗲𝘃, 𝗖𝗵𝗶𝗶𝗵𝗵. There are so many that I work with that I work so well with.
Ryan Smith on REOs, Mark 𝗏𝘃𝗏𝗏𝗏 on insurance, independent insurance.
And contracting, yes.
Yep. So
𝗫𝗏𝘃𝗏𝗏𝗏, our friend, is amazing. I also work with Michael Abraham and the group at Paper Street. All great organizations.
We got to get Abraham on here. I think he'd be a good guest as well too. So, all right.
Yeah.
Hey,
Awesome.
lot of work for Tony to find all the links now. You sat there and said, damn, I hate that answer.
Well, I know Ryan Smith will like your book you recommended, because he's a big history buff. So I was thinking of him already when you did the 𝗤𝘗𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏 book.
Oh, Ryan's the greatest. And talk about
Ryan also does the handwritten notes.
He does.
Also the handwritten note guy, but it leaves an impact.
Yeah, it does. And he's a hardworking guy. That's for sure. There's not many that work harder than Ryan.
So, well, Brian, thank you so much. You provided a ton of value to our listeners. How can they learn more about you? Is there any way they can provide value to you?
Yeah, they can learn more about us at ccfbridgeloans.com. We're always welcoming an opportunity to partner with local investors to help grow their business.
All right. We'll link to all that in the show notes. So, Mark, I'm like 80% certain that this is correct. So, I don't know like what time limit I'll give you here, but I believe there are 17 streets in Chicago named after presidents, We have the downtown ones, and I had to look up the other ones because I couldn't find them all in one coherent place. But I think for my own due diligence, the number is 17. I guess let's give it a go here. And then, Brian, why don't you think of it too? And you can fill in any gaps he misses.
So you got Harrison, Washington, Adams, Madison,
Van Buren,
Franklin, Van Buren, in the city.
Roosevelt.
Oh, Roosevelt.
Thomas.
Jefferson. There we go.
Yeah.
Thank you, Tom.
Jefferson. Yeah. You got a whole park after him.
Yes.
That's a joke.
We got rid of Tyler, but we still have
Adams. Did we say Adams?
No, we said Adams. Tyler.
17's a lot.
Yeah, that
Good
is.
job, Tom.
We got eight. Like, I feel like there has to be a Kennedy.
No,
There
just
definitely
No, there's not. I got
Kennedy Expressway, at least.
there you go.
All right. So do you want some help?
Yeah, give some help.
All right. Do you want clues or you want me just to rattle them off?
Rattle them off.
I don't think, and I could have missed it while you guys were talking. I think we missed Quincy.
Oh, Quincy. Yeah.
Jackson.
Yeah.
Oh, man, that's an easy one.
That's an easy one.
Polk.
Yep, Polk.
Taylor Street. I feel like you should have gotten.
Oh, yeah.
I'm not sure if Grant Boulevard's named after Grant. I had it on here. And same with Lincoln. Like, is Lincoln named after Lincoln? And then up north by me, Wilson.
Oh,
That's more. Oh, and I'm sorry, Fillmore.
we should
I
have got that
should
one
be
too.
ashamed of myself. I was just espousing the virtues of this great book, These Truths, that talks about American history. And I missed all of these.
It's tough though, man. Like, it sounds like so easy, and I'm doing the research. I'm like, oh, yeah, I know this, but like on the spot, like.
Well, here's the root cause here, or problem here is I should just know my presidents, and I should be able to just go one by one, and that would have solved.
Well, we have the first like 8 or whatever, and then they skipped Adams because he's a federal. Like, look this up; it's pretty cool. They talk about the downtown grid there, why it's not in order. So,
oh, okay.
way cooler than our podcast. We'll listen to that.
Oh, wow.
Awesome. All right, Brian, Tom, thank you.
Thanks, guys.
Another awesome show here. All your listeners, please check out our website. Got a lot of awesome resources there. Leave us a 5-star review before you hang up here, and we will see you soon. Thanks, Brian. Thanks, Tom, and we'll talk to you later.
Thanks all.